Now is a more
another scare campaign for Mr. Howard.
Family values to stand up and be counted.
Hello and welcome to YouDecide 2007. YouDecide2007.org is our website where you report and you decide what's important to you. And every week we bring you the top stories from the site. And we have three of Brisbane's best and brightest to help us in that task. We've got Dale Spender, feminist, academic and long-time resident of Brisbane. We've got John Harrison, journalist educator, hails from Maryborough I think in the first place, and Carolyn Marohasy, soon to be one of Brisbane's cultural exports and also a journalism student and this time a first-time voter. In our first segment we want to look at a Vox Populi that we did in Kelvin Grove with a few people on the issue of nuclear power with some interesting consequences.
You could just tell me your name.
Sarah.
And your last name?
O'Brien.
Okay. Do you support nuclear energy in Australia?
No.
Why is that?
Because I think in the next 50 years that energy is going to run out. What's the point of, you know, doing that when we've got so much access to technology? We could be using hydro or any other forms, the sun, solar energy. I mean, in Queensland specifically, we have so much.
Is it something that would affect your vote in the upcoming election?
Yes, definitely, yeah. And I think that's why the Liberal Party have gone up to the Northern Territory too. And I think it all stems from all of that because they want more uranium.
Yes, if it's safe, yes.
Could you please just tell me your name?
Jeff Portman.
Do you support the use of nuclear power in Australia?
I think it's something that we've got to look at. I think there's still a lot of problems about how it will be implemented and I guess all of the concerns we have about its safety issues, but I certainly think we can't rule out looking at it. I think it's one of those issues though that everyone says, well yes, but not in my backyard.
Do you think the issue will affect the way you vote at the upcoming federal election?
Not at this stage, no.
Name's Kenneth Lyons.
And do you support the use of nuclear power in Australia?
I'm undecided in regards to its usage and purpose.
Do you think you'd like to see more debate about the issue?
Absolutely.
And do you think it could possibly affect the way that you voted?
Yes, it would.
Really? And could you just tell me your name?
Alex.
And do you support the use of nuclear power in Australia?
I suppose whatever sort of works is cool. I don't have much of an opinion on it, but I don't know, I suppose more advances of solar power is definitely going to be a good thing. Everyone raves about it, so yeah.
Do you think it's an issue that would affect the way that you voted in the upcoming election?
Definitely, I suppose politicians are really sort of getting on the whole carbon emissions bandwagon at the moment, so I suppose it's something to look at. You've got to look at everything.
Do you think nuclear is a good solution for climate change?
I don't have much of an opinion on that. Sorry, I don't know enough about it to really comment.
So would you like to see a bit more debate and a bit more information in the media?
Yeah, a bit more information probably. I'd probably like to see myself pay more attention to it. I suppose, I don't know if a lot of people you've been asking are like that. But yeah, maybe I'm just ignorant. I just take it all for granted.
Welcome back to YouDecide 2007's coverage of the federal election. Well, it was an interesting series of interviews there by reporter Callie Hussey-Smith, and it raises a number of questions. I want to ask Caroline the first question. Caroline, when I was your age, the last thing anyone would do in public is promote nuclear energy. Now, are we seeing some sort of an age gap happening here? Is nuclear energy a baby boomer issue that isn't chiming with your age group?
No, it's actually really interesting, Graham, because I mean, certainly this is where the conversation ends up towards, you know, the end of parties and dinner table conversation, and most people are not opposed to nuclear, but they see it as only being part of sort of a whole portfolio of energy needs.
They're not opposed to nuclear.
No, because
when I was a young lad, and I'm sure it's even truer of when John and Dale were your age, you couldn't even say in principle that it was a good idea. You had to be opposed to it. I think that'd be a fair statement, wouldn't it?
But I think that's still a fair statement in Europe, for example, because I think it is not in my backyard and it's never been in Australia's backyard. And I was just trying to think of what was the French place? You know, where the French dropped all the atom bombs? And
Marohasy.
Marohasy, that's what I was trying to think of.
It was their place, but in our neighbourhood.
That's right, and then you had a huge protest movement in Australia about it and boycott of French champagne, I remember that.
But we're not talking about nuclear bombs, are we? We're talking about nuclear power.
No, but it was the nuclear threat and nuclear waste and what do you do with it. It was all, there was a nuclear awareness, which there is all over Europe. But I think in Australia we have a sense that it doesn't actually apply here. Yes, we mine uranium, but no, there's nothing nuclear. Look at the fuss about the Atomic Energy Commission in Sydney, where they have got nuclear waste.
Lucas
Heights reactor.
I mean, people go berserk about it when it is nearby.
So, John, is maybe the issue with this that it's okay to be in favour of nuclear energy in the abstract, but when it's in your suburb, it's not going to be a goer?
Graham, not in my backyard. NIMBY is the critical political indicator. Nobody wants a nuclear reactor in their suburb, and none of the politicians are going to put up their hand and say, yes, we will have a nuclear reactor in our electorate. I think the reason why there's been a generational shift in attitude change is that we've seen the end of the Cold War, because there always was a link between the nuclear industry was actually seen as being indivisible. It made bombs and it also made power. Now, there's a perception that the nuclear industry doesn't make bombs anymore. It does, and there's been, I suppose, a propaganda victory in the sense that the proponents of nuclear power have actually been able to say, look, it's going to solve the problem of global warming.
Well, isn't it going to solve the problem of global warming? I mean, we need base load power, don't we? And we don't like the idea of burning coal. So what's left to produce base load power if it's not nuclear?
Well, I don't know enough about it technically, but I know enough technical people who are very suspicious that it won't, that nuclear power doesn't produce carbon emissions at an enormous rate anyway. So, you know, it's not as simple as that, and I just think it's about the nuclear waste. How many carbon emissions are you going to make to dig the holes to put it in, or whatever it's going to be? I mean, it's like a lot of these things that you can't just talk about a nuclear power site. It has to be what happens afterwards, how, you know, all of those sorts of things have to come into it. And I think you'd find that there is a gender issue here.
So you can be genuine on global warming and leave nuclear out of the mix?
I think so. Well, I certainly can, and I'm not illogical, you know. And I think one of the reasons you have a gender bias in this is because, you know, women get pretty sick and tired of cleaning up the mess.
So you think that the woman was fairly typical of females on this issue? You think it's
the
males
scare,
versus women
the threat to health, the fact that you know that no matter how safe it's presented, there's always human error, as there is in Australia about people who handle nuclear waste already. We know about those things. So I think women just basically would be much more inclined to do really sound risk assessment.
But having said that, I mean, when you did talk about, when you asked me previously whether my generation is more inclined to go for nuclear, it is interesting, because I was going to say with that, I mean, it is mainly males who I'm hearing having the conversation about it. And if you said to them, is it a future that is a majority nuclear power, then they would be against it. But it's only having the discussion saying, well, I think we need a percentage of nuclear, we're not going to rule that out, but we really need to start looking at geothermal and solar and hydro. And
all right. Well,
the policy settings on energy in Australia in the past decade have been appalling. I mean, we have so much solar energy. We used to be one of the leaders in solar energy research and development, and quite frankly, the current government trashed that. And no wonder we're a decade or more behind in the policy settings. And I think, you know, the nuclear debate is something of a furphy.
So one of the things that interests me about this is that the ALP has made nuclear energy an issue, and it's top on their policy statement when it comes to global warming, but most of the people that we interviewed there really didn't have a strong opinion on it. So what does this say about the ALP's campaign on this issue? Are they achieving cut-through or not?
I think it was a very small sample. One.
So
woman.
You think we didn't talk to enough people? Caroline?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
John?
Yes, I don't think it's representative.
So
but I do think, though, that it's not top of mind. And I think we're going to, I mean, we all know it's health, it's education, it's the economy, and that it's probably a second level issue.
Okay, well, our website's up there, YouDecide2007.org. If you have a different opinion to those people we interviewed, or if you share their opinion, I'd suggest that you get onto the website and tell us what you think.